Welcome back to Dungan Travels, a vlog presenting nature photography, world travel, and adventure, and occasionally a how-to for woodworking, cooking, and various aspects of photography. The short video today completes a recap of Kay and Donald's summer 2025 trip to France, Germany, Luxembourg, and Switzerland. It presents highlights of their tour of Strasbourg, France, Basel, Switzerland, a walking and boat tour of Zurich, a delightful visit to the mountain town of Zermatt in the Swiss Alps, and lastly, Geneva. On Sunday, the 6th of July, Kay and Donald did a strolling tour of Strasbourg. Strasbourg is eastern France's largest city in the historic region of Alsace, and the official seat of the European Parliament. Strasbourg is one of the de facto four main capitals of the European Union, alongside Brussels, Luxembourg and Frankfurt. It is the seat of several European institutions, such as the European Parliament, the Eurocorps and the European Ombudsman of the European Union. Together with Basel, Switzerland, Strasbourg is among the few cities in the world that is not a national capital that hosts international organizations of the first order. Basel has the Bank for International Settlements. Geneva, Switzerland, is a home of the United Nations. The Hague is home to the International Court of Justice, and New York City is the United Nations World Headquarters. Strasbourg's historic city center, the Grand Island, was classified a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1988. It is home to the largest Islamic place of worship in France, the Strasbourg Grand Mosque. Strasbourg was a delightful city. After touring Strasbourg, Kay and Donald left France and bussed to Basel, Switzerland. This was their first visit to Switzerland, making it the 44th country they visited. Basel is located in the northwest of Switzerland in the border triangle between Germany, France and Switzerland, and has three official languages: French, German, and Italian. Basel is Switzerland's third most populous city. The city on the Rhine is considered the country's art and culture capital. Basel's old town is filled with picturesque alleyways and over 200 fountains. Highlights include the town hall and the cathedral. Interestingly, Basel Minster is a religious building which was originally a Roman Catholic cathedral, but today is a Reformed Protestant church. The original cathedral was built between 1019 and 1500 in Romanesque and Gothic styles. The Mittelmeer Brook is one of the oldest bridges over the Rhine, and is a must when visiting Basel, even if from a bus window. Kay and Donald spent their downtime in a small plaza, Basel's Petersplatz, watching cultural dances and children riding on the beautifully decorated and illuminated Frankfurt horse carousel. The antique carousel has a horse made by Peter Philipp Schneider in Frankfurt, Germany, around the late 19th century. The horse is a rare, hand-carved and painted example from the golden age of carousels. It is a standing-style carousel horse, intricately detailed and professionally restored. The following day, they were transported to Zurich by bus where Kay did a walking tour and boat cruise. Donald did not go on this excursion due to a significant head cold. All photos are by Kay. Zurich is the largest city in Switzerland and is its economic and financial center. It is often labeled as the most expensive city in the world, and we can personally attest to its expensive nature. Zurich is famous for luxurious lifestyles, high-end shopping, and fancy chocolates. However, despite its expense and extravagance, it is also ranked as one of the best cities to live in the world. It sits right on Lake Zurich and has the waters of the river Limmat running right through it. And all this at the foot of the Swiss Alps. The old town is Zurich's tourist hub. Zurich's waterfront along the Limmat River is a beautiful and popular area, featuring the Limmat Quay promenade with picturesque views and famous church towers. The Frohmunster is a church in Zurich which was built on the remains of a former abbey for aristocratic women and which was founded in 853 by Louis the German for his daughter Hildegard. In 1272, the bones of the first two abbesses, Hildegard and Berthe, were placed in the south wall of the church transept. About 1300, someone painted a fresco above their resting place, and then someone painted over the original mural which was uncovered in 1847. Franz Hegyi made a watercolor copy of the original in 2006. Today, it belongs to the Evangelical Reformed Church of the Canton of Zurich and is one of the four main churches of Zurich, the others being the Grossmünster, St. Peter's, and Prediger churches. The Grossmünster is a Romanesque-style Protestant church in Zurich. Its congregation forms part of the Evangelical Reformed Church of the Canton of Zurich. The core of the present building, near the banks of the Limmat, was constructed on the site of a Carolingian church, which was, according to legend, originally commissioned by Charlemagne. Construction of the present structure commenced around 1100 and was inaugurated around 1220. The twin towers of the Grossmünster are regarded as perhaps the most recognized landmark in Zurich. The Green Tower with clock in Zurich refers to the clock tower of St. Peter's Church. It's a prominent landmark in Zurich, known for having the largest clock face in Europe. The tower itself is predominantly green, with a distinctive wooden roof covered in large shingles. Prediger is the last of the four main churches of the old town of Zurich. First built in 1231 AD as a Romanesque church of the then Dominican Prediger Cloister, the basilica was converted in the first half of the 14th century. The choir between 1308 and 1350 rebuilt, and for that time an unusual high bell tower was built, regarded as the highest Gothic edifice in Zurich. They departed Zurich mid-morning the next day and travelled by bus to Chur. Chur is an alpine city in eastern Switzerland. It is Switzerland's oldest city, dating back over 5,000 years. Winding streets in the car-free old town led to the 13th century, three-naved Cathedral of the Assumption. The Romanesque cathedral was finished in 1272 after more than 100 years of construction. Kay and Donald lunched at a cafe on the 5th floor at a department store, Manor Chur, reminiscent of those in the old days of multi-story department stores in Little Rock, Memphis, and other southern cities. After lunch, they boarded the Glacier Express Railway in Chur for a panoramic journey to Zermatt. This was the highlight of the day. From Chur, the train followed the course of the Rhine through the gorge, climbing slowly through alpine valleys. The train route slowly steepened to finally reach its summit, the Oberalp Pass at 6,670 feet. From there the train continued its down and up journey, passing through several alpine villages before entering a lengthy tunnel. After the tunnel, the train followed the course of the Rhone River, and passed through more alpine villages before going through another spiral. After a steeper section, the train finally arrived in Zermatt at 5,302 feet in the early evening, concluding several hours of travel. Aboard the Glacier Express, they were served adult beverages throughout the afternoon and a chicken curry-based lunch which was quite good. They were in the Viking group that walked 20 minutes to their 5-star rated hotel, Boset Zermatt. Inasmuch as it was near 9 p.m., they unpacked just enough to sleep and retired for the evening. Zermatt is famed as a mountaineering and ski resort of the Swiss Alps. Until the mid-19th century, it was predominantly an agricultural community. The first and tragic ascent of the Matterhorn in 1865 was followed by a rush on the mountains surrounding the village, leading to the construction of many tourist facilities. A small city, much of the local economy is based on tourism, with about half of the jobs in town in hotels or restaurants and just under half of all apartments being vacation apartments. The highlight of their entire summer trip occurred on the following day. Here's the story. After breakfast they met at the train station and caught a cogwheel railway through the adjacent Alps to Gonegret. Now, a little about the cogwheel train. Opened in 1898, the Gonegret cogwheel train is the world's oldest electric mountain railway still in operation and has been built solely for tourist purposes. The 33-minute ride was incredibly scenic. The train offered a bird's-eye view of Zermatt with the Matterhorn silhouette towering over it, as well as lakes, forests, and numerous other peaks, valleys, and glaciers. As the cogwheel train clanked along the way, the views of Matterhorn were near breathtaking. Never in my wildest imagination did I ever think I'd see this famous, spectacular mountain. From the top of Gonegret, a mountain summit after which the railway is named, we admired a spectacular view of Matterhorn and 29 other 4,000-meter high peaks, as well as the Gorner Glacier. In fact, at the top, the views of several glaciers overpowered the surrounding landscape. After loads of photos, Kay and Donald caught the cogwheel railcar and rode down to the first stop from the top, Station Rotteneden. At the stop, an ensemble of people dressed in native costumes commonly associated with the Swiss Alps played music on alpine horns and an accordion. Their appearance was at the entrance to an alpine garden containing many plants in full bloom. The entrance at the Alpine Garden was also the trailhead where Kay and Donald began an almost 3-mile hike down the mountain and around a lake to the next whistle stop, Station Riffelbeg. This was their favorite day of the entire trip. Back at the town of Zermatt, they made our way to the hotel, not realizing how tired they really were, and the 20-minute walk from the train station was mostly uphill. As for Zermatt, it remains almost completely free of internal combustion vehicles, apart from the local police service which uses a Volkswagen car, and the refuse collection lorry. It can be reached by train only, and electric vehicles are used locally. These electric vehicles, mostly small trucks and vans, are plentiful and driven very fast in the narrow cobblestone streets. Along with bicycles everywhere, walkers must remain on alert at all times. After a night's sleep, Kay and Donald packed, ate breakfast, and walked to the train station, enjoying the old buildings of Zermatt. Two unique architectural features were stone-tiled roofing and straddle stones for building foundations. Here's more about these unique building components. Stone tile roofs, particularly those made from slate or schist, are a traditional and characteristic feature of Swiss architecture, especially in the Swiss Alps. These roofs are known for their durability, ability to withstand heavy snowfall, and their integration with the surrounding landscape. The stones are typically sourced locally and cut into flat pieces, then laid in overlapping layers on wooden beams. Foundation straddle stones or stone slabs were used historically for structures like granaries in areas like Switzerland as foundations. These mushroom-shaped or tapered stone pillars lifted the building above ground level, making it all but impossible for rodents to climb up and into the structure. These foundation stones were used particularly for Swiss granary. They took the train from Zermatt to Tsushima, then bused to Lausanne, Switzerland, for visit to the International Olympic Museum. Lausanne is headquarters for the International Olympics. Their guide, Eva, was a torch-bearer for the Salt Lake City Games, and her torch is on display in the museum. Other notable relics of past Olympics are on display. From the International Olympic Museum, they traveled to the Lavox Vineyards terraces for wine tasting and lunch. The Lavox Vineyard terraces, stretching for about 18 miles along the south-facing northern shores of Lake Geneva from the Château de Chillon to the eastern outskirts of Lausanne in the Vaud region, cover the lower slopes of the mountainside between the villages and the lake. Although there is some evidence that vines were grown in the area in Roman times, the present vine terraces can be traced back to the 11th century, when Benedictine and Cistercian monasteries controlled the area. It is an outstanding example of a centuries-long interaction between people and their environment, developed to optimize local resources so as to produce a highly valued wine that has always been important to the economy. Since July 2007, Lavox is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. From Lavox they bused to Geneva for the final days of our trip. Geneva is the second most populous city in Switzerland. It is situated in the southwest of the country, where the Rhone River exits Lake Geneva. It is a center for international diplomacy, hosts the highest number of international organizations in the world, including the headquarters of many agencies of the United Nations and the IPRC and IFRC of the Red Cross. It has been referred to as the world's most compact metropolis and the peace capital. In the aftermath of World War I, it hosted the League of Nations. It was where the Geneva Conventions on Humanitarian Treatment in War were signed. As mentioned just a few minutes ago, it shares a unique distinction with New York City, Basel, and Strasbourg as a city which serves as the headquarters of at least one critical international organization without being the capital of a country. Their excursion of Geneva included a bus tour of the diplomatic zone, a stop at the United Nations, drive-by of WHO and International Red Cross, a walking tour of Old Town and St. Peter Cathedral, and concluding with a boat ride in Lake Geneva. One of the highlights of the tour was a visit to St. Pierre Cathedral, a historic church in Geneva. It was originally a Roman Catholic cathedral but became a Calvinist church in 1535. It is known as the adopted home church of John Calvin, one of the leaders of the Protestant Reformation. Inside the church is a wooden chair used by Calvin. The boat ride around Lake Geneva was non-eventful. The bus tour, walking tour, and boat ride concluded the sightseeing portion of their summer trip. It had been wonderful. despite Donald having a persistent head cold for over 2 weeks. After 16 days, they were more than ready to return home. Fortunately, the first plane on the trip home didn't leave Geneva until about lunchtime, allowing them a fairly leisurely morning to enjoy breakfast and pack. The first leg of the trip was from Geneva to London, and went off without a hitch, recognizing, of course, that Heathrow is always a bit of mess. And even the leg from Heathrow to Chicago wasn't too bad except for the lack of leg room in the plane for Donald, especially when the passenger in front kept his seat reclined the whole way, to which he is entitled even if a bit inconsiderate. And then the third leg of the trip from Chicago to Little Rock was okay except for sitting on the tarmac in Little Rock for over 30 minutes waiting for a gate to open despite it being 10:30 p.m. and only a couple other planes at the airport. After picking up their luggage, they were transported to the parking lot, and arrived home about midnight. Overall, the trip was a good one, despite Donald being sick for over 2 weeks. The Switzerland extension was definitely their favorite part of the trip. It was their opinion that Viking had slipped a bit since their last 3 trips on Viking ships. Their room was not serviced as well, and the general tone of the river cruise was not as upbeat. However, the food was excellent, the excursions were great though not as good as they had formerly experienced, and the staff friendly. It will probably be their last trip using Viking, not so much because of the aforementioned conditions, but they don't plan to travel internationally as much as in the past. That concludes this video, and this 7-part series reflecting Kay and Donald's visit to Paris and the Swiss Alps, and several cities in between. Thanks for watching, goodbye for now, and connect with them again in the next few weeks.